Hi guys, if you're part of the incoming class of 2024 at USC or UC Irvine Law School, then you're going to have one class on your schedule that's required before you graduate that previous classes have not had to take. You know what it's called? Let's talk about it. Okay, you give up? It's called How to Be an Anti-Racist. No, that's not what it's called, but it's along those lines. So USC recently said that they were going to require, starting with class of 2024, to take a course on racism and the law. And UC Irvine has followed in those footsteps and have a class of similar topic for all their classes going forward, starting in class of 2024. With all that's been going on with Black Lives Matter and the Asian-specific hate crimes that have been happening, the law schools will try to find a way to address those issues and hopefully make some changes in the future. Do I think that those classes will be helpful? Let's see. I think there's some pros and cons to having those classes. Let's talk about those. So if you watched my video back in February, the Black History Month video, and I talked about how changing implicit biases with people starts with talking to your children about it, because these children grow up into be racist people because they learn from their parents, and to address it at a younger level will hopefully change the narrative about how people treat one another. So what UC Irvine is doing and USC is trying to actually, they're not talking to children, but people who are going to go into the workforce, the legal marketplace, and represent people or judge people, and trying to change the narrative about how people see race and racism. Racism is still well and alive, although some people may argue that it went away in the 1960s. As we've seen, as I said in the past, that is still well and alive. How do we address it? How do we change people's perspective on things? I know there's been recent, commentary about a diversity in the federal judiciary, meaning the people who are judges making the decisions, they should be diverse as the people that they judge. That can go a long way. They want to also do some training for police officers so that they see the people who they are policing in a different light. That may or may not work. I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error to get to the bottom of how do we fix racism that's been going on, systemic racism that's been going on for many generations. How do we change it? And so I would commend USC and UC Irvine for starting somewhere. I know that usually, though, in law school, if you watch my other law school videos, sometimes your required courses are not the best courses that you learn. A lot of times the hands-on courses, like the clinical programs, are where you're going to learn the most information. So having a course about racism and the law in a classroom setting may be too far removed from the information you're actually talking about. People can't really appreciate things unless they experience it. And you're not going to necessarily experience it in a pedagogical setting. You're going to actually talk about it, move on, people still have the same thoughts. But if you have it in a setting of more of a clinical program, something like pro bono work that actually addresses this, I think that would be more helpful. And perhaps they will expand it later, but at this point, to actually talk about it is a step in the right direction, I would think. So, of course, you're going to have those people that are going to be like, why do we have to take this class? Why is it mandatory? Why can't I choose whether I want to learn about how to not be an anti-racist? We're going to have those people, right? And I think it goes back to when we had in February, people were talking about, oh, they shouldn't be taught Black History Month in schools. It should be, voluntary if they want to take those courses. And actually, those people that wanted to opt out were those same people that actually need to hear the information. And so those people that want to opt out of this program, for whatever reason, I think, like I said, there are some pros and cons of having in the class, but I think it's, like I said, it starts the conversation. It's to have intellectual conversations about issues that affect us on a daily basis. If you watch my other video about HBCU law schools and why you should attend one, diversity is a big factor in being inclusive of other people. So everybody doesn't have to look like you. Actually, I think you'll be a more developed and better human being if you can appreciate other cultures and not look down on them. So I appreciate having different cultures, and sometimes PWIs, predominantly white institutions, lack the diversity needed So you grow up in this environment, you go to undergrad in this environment, you go to law school in this environment, and then when you get into the real world, which does not reflect the environment in which you were trained, it's sometimes a culture shock. And so having this discussion at a law school level, I think, starts the ball rolling. Some people need to be educated. Some of them have lived in a bubble and they need this course to kind of start that ball rolling. Some people, this is an opportunity for them to share their experiences. Some people may be shocked and appalled, like, you went through that? I didn't know. You know, watching the news is too far removed from them. But if their classmate sitting next to you says, hey, I was racially profiled while driving in certain neighborhoods. Or another classmate says, hey, I went somewhere and I was beat up because of my race. It may have a different impact on how you view yourself, how you view the world in general, and hopefully will positively impact how you treat people in the future. I think it says a lot, and it takes a stand that a top 25 law school such as UC Irvine is coming out with this mandatory program. As I mentioned, it may have some pros and cons, but I think it's going to actually motivate other law schools or even some undergraduate institutions to do something similar. There's no way of getting around it. I mean, it's in your face. I think when Black Lives Matter happened, it was in our face a little bit. This recent incidents of Asian Pacific hate crimes made it even more in the face. What are we going to do about it? The United States has a history of kind of sweeping things under the rug. Hopefully they'll forget about it kind of thing. It's not going to happen. And I'm glad that UC Irvine is actually doing something. I think they had a task force to come up with some ideas, and they included some of the organizations that were in the institutions as part of the planning process. So I think it's an ongoing thing. They may move to other directions. But right now, if your class is 2024, be prepared to talk about racism and the law and racism in general. In the past month, we've been seeing the George Floyd trial being televised. It brought back memories of police brutality in the past. And so racism in the law is going to be there. As I mentioned, at the police level, at the judge level, at the jury level, you'll see how racism plays into the law, how people are more harshly punished than others, and why this happens. And so talking about it in the context of law school, I think is important. You have people there that are going to move on to be prosecutors, public defenders, judges, things of that nature. Having this discussion at this level will prepare them for whatever role they take in the future. I would also add that I would be interested to know who's actually running these courses that they're doing at these schools, because that plays a big part in how it's received. Are they bringing in outside people to actually have these courses? The people who are actually conducting the courses, have they experienced anything? Can they speak from personal experiences? I feel like it goes a long way in how it's perceived, how it's understood by the students. And so I don't know the details of that, and I'm sure they're probably still working that out, but I think that would impact things. What do you think? What are your thoughts about having this mandatory course? Do you think it'll be helpful? Comment below.